Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russell Brand. What a very special show it is today. Col Douglas Macgregor is joining us. That won't be in the first 15 minutes when we're on YouTube. Oh, no. That will be exclusively available in that sweet home of free speech that we call Rumble. Remember, click the link in the description and join us over there. And you Awakened Wonders, surely now you are getting ready for our new offering, Break Bread with Russell Brand. Episode 1 is with Tucker Carlson. I couldn't be more excited. It's Tucker Carlson as you've never seen him before, taking communion, talking about the Lord, talking about how globalism, in a sense, he believes, is the sort of emergence of a dark spiritual force and that we're in spiritual warfare. You're going to love that. Become an Awakened Wonder. Join us for that. That will be absolutely fantastic. And also, the Jordan Peterson conversation that I had earlier this week will be up tomorrow. It's 90 minutes long. It's fantastic. I've never had a conversation with Jordan Peterson like it. You'll love it. And on tomorrow's show, of course, it's Bobby Kennedy that will be joining us for a conversation about the weirdest, strangest election I can remember. But we're here mostly now to talk about the relentless march towards perpetual war and the exploitation of elders. Now, when the Nord Stream pipeline story hit the headlines and we were told that Russia had blown up that pipeline themselves as some peculiar act of sabotage, many of us thought it was ridiculous, but Seymour Hersh, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, pointed out that it was likely carried out by deep state agencies involving the United States and possibly other nations that are members of NATO and even Ukraine themselves, therefore an act of sabotage. Seymour Hersh was attacked by the establishment because of this, because that's how the establishment rolls. They operate on that level. There is no virtue, there is no reverence, there is no respect that can be applied unless you are a useful object for the advancement of their agenda. Bob Woodward, he of All the President's Men fame, the man whose stories broke the Watergate scandal, he's still useful to the establishment, and his new book has extraordinary revelations about both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Let's have a look at CNN's reporting on this story to see how, in a sense, this is a tale of two elders. Seymour Hersh cast out because he challenges establishment power, and Bob Woodward, to a degree, still revered because his message can be useful. This is the way the system operates, and it's a lot more granular than just voices that directly relate to power, war, and geopolitics. Even a celebrity, if you're useful, can be propped up, but once you're no longer useful, oh my word, you will be chewed up. That's why these Diddy revelations are so fascinating, because I believe they'll show you the true, insidious, maybe even satanic, is that too far? Dark nature of Hollywood. That there's institutional weird stuff going on there. These revelations are fascinating. But of course, now we're focusing on the rather large issue of war. War and whose messages and truths about war are amplified and whose are masked. Here's the story of Bob Woodward's new book and its revelations about both Trump and Biden.
A soon-to-be-released book by veteran Washington journalist Bob Woodward is offering a remarkable and shocking look at what President Joe Biden really thinks about some of America's closest allies. Example 1, Woodward quotes Biden as calling Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a bad guy, a quote, bad effing guy. But Netanyahu isn't the only world leader to earn Biden's wrath. The book War was obtained by CNN ahead of its release next week. It was obtained specifically by CNN special correspondent Jamie Gangel, who joins us now. Wow, some of these revelations. Here is the book.
And I'll lend it to you.
This is a treasure trove of revelations. I'm not like exaggerating here. My jaw dropped in some of the anecdotes in here.
You know, Bob Woodward is still bringing the receipts after all this time. The book is based on confidential documents, notes, transcripts, firsthand accounts from participants. It is an unprecedented look behind the scenes at Joe Biden, unfiltered, profane. He likes to drop the F-bomb. We really learn how leaders and top U.S. officials speak to each other and about each other behind the scenes. But there's also some notable news about Donald Trump in this book. There are new details about former President Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin. Specifically, the book reveals phone calls never before revealed between Trump and Putin, including a verbatim conversation where they discuss that Trump secretly sent to Putin scarce COVID testing machines for his personal use. This was at a time during the height of COVID where everybody wanted one of these. And we actually have, Woodward has the conversation between Trump and Putin in the book.
If that conversation had continued, it might have gone, don't worry too much, because COVID isn't actually that bad unless you have a great deal of comorbidity issues, unless you're suffering from the lifestyle diseases that's caused by living as a kind of larvae blob on the conveyor belt of big food, big agriculture and big pharma corporatism. Interesting story, interesting insights, particularly when contrasted with the way that another elder of the American media establishment, Seymour Hersh, has been treated and discredited. Here is Glenn Greenwald revealing that a Danish newspaper, Politiken, have confirmed some of the stories that we knew to be true at the time because of common sense. Remember when multiple major US media outlets, as well as the small handful of think tank experts they always quote, tried to convince Americans and Europeans that it was mostly Putin who blew up his own Nord Stream pipeline? I do. Here it is, this Danish reporter, Thomas Farsi, saying that it was indubitably and undoubtedly an event that involved the United States deep state and Ukrainian forces. There you go. The common sense, many people might argue right there. To get some new and deeper insights into military matters around the world, I'm having a conversation with Colonel Douglas Macgregor. Let me know in the comments and chat if you're familiar with Colonel Douglas Macgregor. His revelations have always been pretty staggering and extraordinary. I have a brilliant conversation with him about which war is most likely to bring about global Armageddon, and what a ridiculous conversation to be having with anybody. But the significance of talking to experts is, in a sense, the duty and the drive of a channel like ours. We're limited in our purview and our understanding, but thanks to the miracle of technology and the availability of guests like Colonel Douglas Macgregor, we have the opportunity to speak to people who know a lot more about these subjects than I do. And in fact, the reason that I'm now somewhat informed on the subject of the pandemic is because of the Oracle season. We'll post the link in the chat right now. The Oracle season are our special symposiums where we talk to experts and they explain to us unique insights for the first time. When we were talking about pandemics, I was lucky enough to have Robert Malone, Steve Kirsch and Pierre Corey all in the same room. Here's an excerpt from that conversation available for you if you're a Locals member. Can you tell us chronologically how you began to understand the way that this pandemic was being reported on was inaccurate, and what were the early indicators? Just to sort of let you know that in late 2019 I was still thinking, oh my word, this is seismic, this is terrifying. I was traveling in an airport from Australia back to the UK. I was scared when my kids were touching stuff. At what point did you realize that there was a disparity between what was being communicated and the reality?
So late 2019 was really early. I didn't even become aware of the virus outbreak in Wuhan until I got a call from Michael Callahan on January 10th of 2020. So that's when I first became alerted to it. In terms of the difference between all the messaging, the propaganda that was coming out of China and then northern Italy, versus the reality that various epidemiologists were actually documenting. Jay Bhattacharya is a key name here. That kind of came to my attention during January and February, but then really in March was when a cascade of things happened. We had our initial book censored by Amazon. And I realized that the guy from the CIA that I'd been communicating with was lying to me. And that's kind of what set me down the path of understanding what was going on. He was misrepresenting the origin of the virus and a lot of the storyline around it.
All right, now it's time for my conversation with Colonel Douglas Macgregor and his interesting insights in geopolitics. Recorded this in the Washington studio of Rumble. And Colonel Douglas Macgregor, as always, helped me understand the true at-depth movements of geopolitics right now and their historic undergirding. You will love this conversation. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us, Colonel Douglas Macgregor. It's such an honor to be speaking with you in Washington, in the midst of the swamp.
That's right. The honor is all mine, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. We met yesterday at the Rescue the Republic event in which we were participating, and it seems to me that this is an important time to rescue the Republic. Now, this is a conversation that has to happen simultaneously on various planes. The individual level, the level of absolute subsidiarity, the local level, power connected to people that can make an impact using the levers of politics that are already available to them to influence their communities, particularly in a time leading up to an election. But there is also, of course, a global dimension and pressing potential Armageddon. The reason I suppose that I'm asking this question right now is because of the strikes within Lebanon and also Donald Trump's recent declarations after some of the personal, I was going to say incursions, but they're assassination attempts that he's experienced have been connected to, in particular, Iran. I wonder if you could help us understand how this escalates the likelihood of that region exploding into further conflagration, sir.
Well, I think if you had to choose between Eastern Europe and Ukraine right now and the Middle East and try to establish which one is by far the more dangerous, I would suggest the Middle East is more volatile. I think the war in Ukraine is effectively over militarily and has been for some time. Ukrainians have been bled white, and whatever we do to try and help them at this point is not going to work. And it's inhumane, frankly, because they've lost 600,000 soldiers killed in this war. Those are World War I level statistics. You know, during World War I, we fought for a total of 110 days in World War I. That's all we were in there for. And in 110 days, we had 110,000 deaths and 200,000 casualties, in other words, wounded. So that's why I say the loss of 600,000 lives is horrific. Then when you compare that with the numbers of Ukrainians that have left the place, you know, the Ukrainian nation itself is practically dead. And that's what people in the West don't seem to understand. We've been pushing this war and insisting that we fight to the last Ukrainian. Well, we're getting close. Ukraine itself may not survive this. But I don't see a major war breaking out there. And the reason I say that is because, as you pointed out earlier, very recently, Putin made a public statement and simply said that this business of long-range strikes into the heart of Russia, into its cities, and putting its own military power, particularly its nuclear deterrent, at risk, it's unacceptable. And that if any third party, in other words, a nation that is hosting long-range strike weapons for the United States and Great Britain, if that's Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Poland, Romania, whoever it is, they will be treated as co-belligerents. In other words, you will be seen as doing something that your nuclear power ally is actually doing. And we reserve the right to use a nuclear weapon to deal with that. We won't tolerate it. That had the desired effect. And that's why when Starmer came over from London and he had this big proposal to strike deep into Russia, Biden and his staff said, no, we will not support that. So I think there's a recognition that things have gone far enough. What nobody wants to do in the West is say this was a mistake. We need to back down and get out of there. So I think that will happen after the election. You know, now Donald Trump, fortunately, thankfully, has been arguing for that for some time. That's good. But I think it will happen regardless of whom's elected, because we just can't afford it. We don't want to go to war there. That's quite obvious. The issue now is really shifting to the Middle East. And the Middle East is entirely different.
Before you embark on that complex topic, there's a few things I would like to comment upon. It's interesting how the term cycle of American electoral politics affords the military-industrial complex to, I would contest, advocate for military action that even to someone as uninformed about geopolitics as I am would seem to be, if not futile, downright dangerous. Ergo, you can't have a war with Russia, can you? Because aren't Russia a nuclear superpower? This fact was somehow obfuscated for a number of years, couple of years. Meanwhile, this misadventure cost hundreds of thousands